welcome to a brand new episode of Comment Section. That's right, guys. We are continuing our celebration of 2024 about all the big stuff that came out this year. And guess what? Now's the time we get into what movies we loved this year. Our favorite movies of 2024.
Yes. And I know you're not supposed to pick a favorite child, but this is my favorite episode of every year. I love talking about my favorite movies because every year there's always something that I'm just like, one of my favorite movies ever comes out every year. That's that's the great thing about making it to another year, and 2024 is no exception. Even when there are many duds, which we will also talk about today, there's always some good to come along with it.
Yes.
So
always at the end of the year, it's always like,
yes,
man, we did get some really good stuff this year.
Yeah, it's good to reflect and make sure we can't be all negative like we will be for the top of this episode.
Yes.
We also have to recognize that some good stuff comes out that we will remember. And last episode we covered our favorite TV shows, games, music, comic books, and then we're going to close out this entire year of Comment Section out with the worst movies of the year and the best movies of the year. So you got to stay tuned to the end of this episode to hear our number ones. It's the most anticipated announcement of every year, is what the two of us have to say is our number one movie of the year. I mean, I'm very excited. I mean, I feel like it's probably people could probably guess what your number one is. I feel like I have a guess, but I haven't gotten a chance to talk about my number one yet.
Yeah, I don't really know what your number one would be.
You would never be able to guess.
I mean, I could have a, one I could have a guess for. I don't even know if you've seen.
Okay. Yeah, it's the only way you'd be able to guess is like if one were to search up like best movies of 2024, it might come up. If you search like best horror movies of 2024, I think it would probably come up in a list. It's a highly acclaimed movie. That's a little teaser, but I haven't talked about it on the show yet. So, but
it's Craven, isn't it?
Dang it! You're spoiling things.
I know Paul loved it. Producer Paul texted us about how much he loved Craven the Hunter and how it was a perfect follow-up to Madam Web.
Yes, he loves us. He's always like, why should the hero always get the spotlight?
Yes, the best kind of stories is the one where the hero doesn't show up at all.
Yeah, that's very much Paul's thing, our producer. But we were talking about before this that I rarely have a negative list because I think I just kind of I'm not really dragged to movies I don't want to see. I'm pretty picky with choosing what I watch. And even some of the times when I have not enjoyed, I will just stop watching something. Like if it particularly, I've never walked out of a movie, but streaming, I will, like in the first 10 minutes, if I'm bored, I'm going to stop watching it. And then I'm not going to say it's the worst movie I've ever seen or anything because I've only seen 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I avoid like, it's very difficult for me to end a year and even have an example of a worst movie because I just haven't seen the movies that I probably would hate. So that's why what I have to do is simply listen to your list of the many movies that you very much did not like.
Yes.
And I'm very curious to hear them because maybe some of them will be controversial, and I love that. Yes. I love controversy.
Yes. Now, before we, now I want to sometimes I feel like we got to share some of the hatred. Can you once again say what your favorite movie of the Star Wars sequel trilogy was?
Oh yeah, that'd definitely be The Last Jedi. And after that, because of the peak of how high and how just like the sheer creativity, and Ryan Johnson is one of my favorite directors of all time. And none of this is a joke, by the way. Ryan Johnson is actually one of my favorite directors of all time, and The Last Jedi is the best sequel trilogy movie. It's actually the best movie that they've came out in the entire Disney era, easily. But after that, I just kind of was like, you know what? That's the peak. I don't need to consume any other Disney era content. I got bored of The Mandalorian. So yeah, The Last Jedi is kind of the one shining light in the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, man, do I want to dig a hole for myself? I don't know. We're gonna get there anyway.
Yeah.
My favorite thing from the Disney era is the Obi-Wan show.
I think that looks good. I just haven't watched it because I just kind of gave up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care how anyone feels clearly about what the whole I'm gonna dig myself into with this war stuff list.
Yeah.
But for me, Star Wars is the original trilogy and the Obi-Wan show. That is Star Wars.
Yeah. For me, now it is the original trilogy, the Clone Wars animated series, episode 3.
Have you gone through the whole thing?
I did a long time ago. I would reach out. I went back to it for a couple episodes. And episode 3 of the prequels, which is the only halfway decent one. Pretty much just The Last Jedi of the sequels, because The Force Awakens kind of gets ruined by the fact that the third one doesn't really service it, although The Force Awakens is still very good.
But technically, Force Awakens does set up The Last Jedi.
That's true. It can kind of be a duology. It's just sort of like, it would have been better. Like, the rehashing the first one would have been better if it was setting up a full trilogy, but it really only set up The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Which I guess is fine.
Man, this is something I almost debated asking. But you know what? Man, this is the most controversial episode yet. But here's something I've honestly been feeling lately when it comes to Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, I like Star Wars, but I'm not the most hardcore fan.
Yeah.
When I hear like people, upset about the Acolyte and stuff, it kind of made me question something. And I've been wondering about asking you it too.
Okay.
Should the Star Wars brand maybe be retired? I mean, is anyone ever going to be happy with anything?
Yeah.
Because, look, while I like the sequel trilogy, I'll admit, overall, it is very just like, it's not what fans would have liked. Especially, I accept it because when you look at all 3 trilogies, they focus on different generations.
Yeah.
But, man, if they try to continue with the story of Rey, then that's really going to be like, well, what the heck, guys? You could have bridged it a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that retiring it would never happen because of what it has become. It's an absolute money-making machine, and it's just expected that it's going to be milked for eternity. But I mean, I think it should be because, like, I don't know, like, at the same time, like, I don't believe in, like, necessarily ruining things. Like, nothing could be done to make the original trilogy not good. Like, you can appreciate it on its own no matter what. So I don't care if it keeps going or not, but at the same time, I guess for my own taste, it might as well, because I just kind of I just don't I stopped being a fan of the franchise because I just don't like the dynamic of, like, trying to please unpleasable fans. Like, I just don't like how it feels anymore. So it might as well just be over to me. I mean, I love the Star Wars movies and pieces of Star Wars media that I love, but I kind of don't consider myself a fan who is looking forward to any Star Wars content in the future. Like, I'm not looking to consume a Star Wars thing ever again, except for rewatching the stuff that I like.
Yeah, I almost kind of feel like they're in a no-win situation. Try and connect stuff and expand a trilogy from the 70s and 80s. I almost feel like if you're not going to retire it, maybe you should reboot it and just clean that way, like you're not really connected to those old movies and stuff.
Yeah, but that is like, it's impossible to please anyone with that. Like, no one would accept a rebooted Star Wars because that's just like where the fan base seems to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what they can do, but
yeah, that's why part of me is almost like, should I just switch to Star Trek at this point? Because honestly, the Lower Deck show looks pretty good to me. And even though it would be a weird place to start, I saw one like original series episode of Star Trek once that I thought was fairly good. So part of me is just like, you know what? Screw it. Maybe I should be Star Trek
Han
person.
Solo for Spock.
Yep, that's right.
Yes. But enough of Star Wars talk.
Yeah, enough. It'll never be brought up again. Let's talk about the worst movies of you. You forced me to take the controversial position for a second before switching to you, where you're afraid that one of these is going to be very controversial. But yeah, go ahead. What are your worst movies of 2024?
Yes. So I have 5 worst movies of 2024, and we'll start with the least offensive one.
Okay.
And that is this year's musical remake of Mean Girls.
Oh,
that's right. So Mean Girls, I had seen it before and I rewatched it again recently. That's a really good movie. Like Tina Fey did the screenplay. That's a very, very smart and funny movie.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. This is the kind of the problem with the whole premise of doing the Mean Girls musical.
Yeah.
Because so much screen time is going to be taken up from when they burst out into song.
Yeah.
That means they have to remove a lot of the comedy. And then when you do that, it's just whiny teenagers in high school.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the fault of Mean Girls the musical is it's not funny. It's just whiny, mopey teenage kids. By the way, I need to say something. So they had, I don't know if you remember Betty Brant from the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. She was Ned's girlfriend in Far From Home. She is the main girl in Mean Girls, and Jenna Fisher is her mom. And my God, do they look like they could be related?
Oh really?
It is like, it's so, they look so related that it almost distracts you. Like, is she a niece or something? But there's that. So, I mean, that's really the fault of Mean Girls the musical is they took away all the jokes.
Yeah, that's not a good thing to do for a comedy.
Yeah. So that's why I call it the least offensive. These next 4 are, well, they're trash.
Okay.
All right. My number 4 worst movie of the year is the Garfield movie.
Okay. All right.
Which, by the way, I look in the background. I feel like I might be stupid asking this. Is that Garfield behind you on that bookshelf?
Oh, it's not. It's actually a stuffed animal of a chicken sandwich, but it looks like a chicken. It was a thing for work. I took photos of it for a company's social media.
Oh, okay.
And then I just put it behind me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a chicken.
Looking at your screen, can you understand why I would ask the question?
Yeah, that's why I immediately knew what you were talking about.
Yeah.
I was like, there's an orange stuffed animal right there.
Yes. It is the Garfield movie. This movie, you know what sucks? I had hope for this movie. I thought there was a chance. I really enjoy Garfield. I don't care. I'll say it. Garfield is better than Charlie Brown. There, I said it.
Wow, we are getting controversial.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And it's from the studio who gave us Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So what
I
could
didn't
go
know that.
wrong? You know what? They haven't said. I swear this movie could have been written with AI. It's all full of cliche jokes from like kids movies where it's just like, this is not funny. This is dumb. Garfield doesn't act like Garfield. It's basically just Chris Pratt's personality, except he stops like lasagna sometimes. Like
Yeah.
it was just the most like, this is not Garfield. This is just Chris Pratt. The story was stupid. The jokes were lame. I don't like, everything was so bad. There was no redeemable thing. And I think if I look at the director of the Garfield movie, I think directed like one of the first movies I remember being disappointed with.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Filmography. Oh yes, that was the last movie he did. The last movie he directed. Oh my god, he directed that too? Jesus Christ. He directed, the last movie he directed was 2005's Chicken Little from Disney.
Oh yeah.
That was one of the first movies I remember like leaving being like, that sucked. That was awful.
Yeah.
And the other movie he directed before that. Well, are these the only movies he's directed?
Oh, I see them now. It's not a lot.
Cats. Oh, okay, he's done 4 movies. He did Cats Don't Dance, which I've never seen.
Yeah.
The one before that he did was, and before Chicken Little, he did The Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, which I like. Chicken Little does stink, but I don't.
I mean, I'll be honest. That was the first movie that from the trailers I was just like, no, I don't want to see this. This looks dumb. And it was the first movie. It was the movie that killed the Disney Renaissance because we had been going on such a hot streak, and then The Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I learned basically an improv movie that didn't have a script, so it is. But there's some charm to it to me. But yeah, it's not a good track record.
Yeah, for me, the Garfield movie. And then they did this thing with his dad, which everything about none of the emotional moments felt earned. It just was terrible. And it was my biggest disappointment of the year. I know some people be like, what, Garfield? But I really thought we were going to get something good with it.
Yeah.
I really did. And, you know, part of it is on me then.
Yeah.
Part of it is on me.
Joke's on you. Yep.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to my number 3 worst movie of the year. Now, I feel really bad talking about this movie, talking about how bad this movie was.
Okay.
Because when I sat down to watch it, man, did I really want to root for it because of who was the writer, who was director, and who was the star.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like the dude tried his best and it just didn't work. And unfortunately, it's Self-Reliance, written and directed and starring Jake Johnson, who you know as Peter B. Parker from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Okay.
The movie is about a guy who's competing on a game, a reality show, where people are going to try and hunt him, and he has to try not to die.
Okay.
The premise was stupid. The jokes were awful. The relationship between him and Anna Kendrick's character made no sense. And then the ending was stupid. It just was terrible. And I feel bad because I love Jake Johnson. I love him as Spider-Man. And I want him to do great stuff. And I really appreciate how he tried. I believe this is his first writer and directing. I believe this is the first movie he directed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's his directorial debut. He wrote the script. And look, I appreciate how he decided to stretch creatively and try something. I really feel like, when watching it, I genuinely feel like he tried his best. And look, it has a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, so people do like it, but I thought it was awful.
Yeah.
It's one of those, like, I hate having to say how awful it is, but I just thought it was terrible.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard of this. But it actually is kind of similar. I think it came out this year and I didn't end up seeing it, but it's a similar situation of like a comedic actor who I really like did their directorial debut where they wrote and directed a movie, which was Charlie Day came out with a movie called like God, what is this movie called? Yeah, but apparently it's a movie that yeah, it's called Fool's Paradise. It's a movie that I was excited for, and I ended up not seeing it because I heard very bad reviews. Like it was a total mess. And part of me was just like, this is clearly a very, very talented and funny guy. So it's kind of like something can sometimes happen when you suddenly are directing and writing your first movie, just this big task all at once. It's maybe hard to kind of transition from just, a comedic actor who maybe does some comedy writing all the way to completely creating your own thing, your own vision. But yeah, the Self-Reliance movie, the premise and stuff, part of me wants to watch it and see if I like it, but it sounds disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, it has a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And, when we talk about like directorial debuts, sometimes, look, whenever you do something the first time, you're not going to be great. Sometimes you got to cut a little slack on that. But like I don't think Jake Johnson should just stop writing and directing.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, try something else. To find a better story. Come up with something better.
Yeah. For sure. So that's too bad.
Yeah. Number 2. Oh man, is a sequel to a movie that was on my best list 5 years ago. That's right. I'm sure you can guess what it was.
I think I can guess what it is, and I think for a lot of people it's going to be surprising that it's not your number 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is Joker Filet-O-Doo.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. The thing about the first Joker movie, because I rewatched it before going to this one. That's a movie that could have gone either way. But part of the thing that makes that movie so good is that it actually works.
Yeah.
They found a really healthy way to do Todd Phillips' vision while still having it be a Joker Batman universe movie.
Yeah.
Because, yes, it's grounded in Todd Phillips' vision of this 1970s era Gotham City. But we're playing with the time span that normally we don't have in the comics. So that's like kind of like you have freedom to do what you want there because we know you just have to get to this end point. And it was inspired by the Killing Joke in Dark Knight Returns. And you had young Bruce Wayne. In the movie, it's a Joker origin story, but it also turns into a Batman origin story. And there was kind of a feeling of like, what can they do next? What can they do next if they're going to do a Joker 2? Which I think everyone agreed, this is a standalone. Why are you trying to do another one? Well, what would have been the obvious choice? What would have been the obvious choice for Joker 2? Just like Batman Begins. You had Batman Begin. What was the obvious choice? Pit him against the Joker. What would have been the obvious choice for Joker 2? Pit him against Batman. And, they decide, Todd Phillips dug his heels in. Oh, no, we're not that kind of movie. Well, then why are you even calling it Joker? Why are you even calling it that?
Yeah.
And they decide that they were going to introduce Harley Quinn, which I thought, okay, if you're not going to do Batman, maybe you could do something with that. And then we found out it was going to be a musical, which was like, what? How that's going to be jarring watching those two movies back to back.
Yeah.
Do you remember Todd Phillips was one of the people they looked at for taking over DC before James Gunn?
I don't remember that, but wow.
Yeah. I went to Joker Filet-A-Deux, kind of feeling like the first movie. Like, I don't know. I mean, we did the origin story. Can you really do this again without Batman, even though last time you did have Batman?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is no. This movie is terrible. It is, dare I say, so half-assed. There was no effort put into this movie. And, I will just say, what killed this movie was Todd Phillips digging in his heels and refusing to put Batman in it. I hear so many people online say, what killed this movie? Oh, it was because they didn't want to God, I lost my train of thought. I feel like Frank Costanza in the Festivus. I lost my train of thought. Oh, some people are saying what killed it was, they made a musical. Oh, it's a reaction to the first movie where some people put Joker on a pedestal. What killed this movie was refusing to put in Batman, because what is Joker without Batman? To quote Gotham, Joker says to Bruce Wayne in the Gotham TV show, without me, you're just a joke without a punchline. In The Dark Knight, Joker says to Batman, you complete me. What can you really do with Joker if you refuse to put Batman in it? You have a trial movie where all they do is sit around and talk about the first movie.
Yeah.
It was them sitting around being like, hey, remember when this happened in the movie? Remember, it was literally Todd Phillips being like, hey, remember when I made a movie? This was the whole premise of the movie. Todd Phillips being like, remember when I made a movie that got nominated for Best Picture? Crazy times, guys. Crazy times they were.
Mm-hmm.
And even except for that, the musical aspects are so dumb because at first, now if you watch the first Joker, there's that time after he kills the guy where he starts dancing, and when you rewatch that first movie, the music and dancing of the first Joker is kind of showing his descent into becoming, the clown prince of crime.
Yeah.
I swear, the only reason they have the musical moments in here are because that's the only way he could put the clown makeup on, because he's either in jail or on trial.
Okay, yeah.
That's the only reason I feel like they did the musical sequences, because God forbid anything interesting actually happened.
Yeah.
And this, for a movie that is supposed to be so grounded and realistic, man, what a sloppy script this was.
Mm.
Because, why does Joker go to a music class? Just because the guard saw him look in a window or something. Here was some really bad writing, okay? In the movie, Joker is in solitary confinement, and Harley appears in his cell. And he says, what are you doing in here? And her response is, well, I just asked the guards and they let me in. I'm like, what? What? Wait. No way.
Yeah.
Am I going to really believe that? No way am I supposed to believe that she just asked a guard and they let her in there.
Yeah.
No way. And then the trial happens. And again, this is kind of how Force's premise is of just, we want to do Joker, but we don't want to really do anything with him. The judge says, now I will allow you to wear makeup, your Joker makeup, Mr. Arthur, but I will not turn this courtroom into a circus. Like, why are you letting him wear the makeup if you don't want that? The relationship with Harley and Joker was so just like, it just kind of came out of nowhere. There's no real build up to it. It's just, oh, now we're here now in this relationship. Okay, now we're here.
Yeah.
By the way, she says she's pregnant. Never mentioned again.
Okay.
Never mentioned again.
Okay.
And then, do you care if I spoil it for you? Because
I don't care the slightest bit. No.
Okay. because don't watch this movie, okay?
Yeah.
And then to make the whole thing super insulting, what happens? He gets stabbed in prison by the real Joker. This whole time, it was not Arthur. It was not Arthur. Wow.
Okay.
Joke's on us, guys. What a wasted time. So you're telling me I sat through this 2-hour piece of crap set in Gotham City without Batman, and we only have 10 seconds of the Joker, and we just followed some random guy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks. And you know what it was? He can say, oh, our whole intention was no. It was you basically saying, I don't want to do a third one. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Look, this is a movie that never should have been made. If they want another Joker movie, and look, I don't even really like Matt Reeves as the Batman. They should have done one about Barry whatever his name is, Barry Keoghan's Joker, Harley Quinn, show him mean Batman the first time. That's what they should have done. This movie never should have been made because Todd Phillips clearly didn't care. And you know what? I hate how Warner Brothers has this. Warner Brothers and David Zaslav have this now awful thing about just scrapping movies for tax write-offs.
Yeah.
I think it's terrible. It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to do it, you should have done it with this one.
Yeah.
This is a movie that never should have been made. It's damaged the brand of DC far more than Batgirl ever would have. It's just,
yeah,
you get done watching it and you can't help but think, what a waste of time. Like, honestly, when it was done, like, you genuinely feel like everything from when it was announced back in like 2018 till now, like 6 years, what a waste of time.
Yeah.
For like both the crew making it and the audience. Now I will give one little thing. Obviously, look, it's not Joaquin Phoenix's fault the movie is bad. Yeah. Unless you believe the reports that he came up with the plot in a dream. Which that's a red flag right there. But then Todd should have said no.
Yeah.
He does his best. And look, I will just say, is he a singer? No. But I respect how the dude went all out on those musical numbers. Like, he committed. And he tried his best. And I respect him for going all out on that. But, like, it wasn't a movie about Joker. The only DC character who really had screen time was Harvey Dent. But is he really Harvey Dent? Now you question everything. Because clearly, Lady Gaga was not the real Harley Quinn.
That's true.
And Harvey Dent, I mean, how many people in Gotham are named Harvey Dent? Who knows?
Yeah. Could be anyone. Who knows anymore?
Yeah. Honestly, when I was watching it, I was just like, you know what? When I was seeing that piece of crap, I was just like, can we at least get Bruce Wayne so this whole thing isn't a waste of time? But alas, we did not get any Batman. And so it made it so that I decided I don't need to rewatch this ever again. Yeah. I am done. If Batman had been in it, I would have bought the Blu-ray, just been like, well, I still got Batman in it, but never. Now, I will say this. Hot take. Get ready, guys. It's a bad movie. I don't think it's as bad as Shazam 2 or Aquaman 2.
Okay.
But it's still bad. So, Joker, filet of crap. What a waste of everybody's time. They should have just made one set in the Batman universe. And this is coming from someone who doesn't even like the Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I can't comment on this one too much, but I almost want to respect this in the way that I might respect the bravery of someone taking a crap in an art museum and calling it art. But at the end of the day, it sounds like it's still, it's going to be too smelly to enjoy. So Not
Uncle
a,
would
not
love
a,
that reference.
yeah,
Money Museum. That's the
Yeah.
most funny thing I've ever seen at a museum.
yeah. We should recommend this podcast to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I'm very excited to hear your number one. You said it was very controversial, because I basically am positive that it's not this because of what you've said, but I think what will end up being a glaring omission of like probably many people's worst movie of the year, Madam Web, is going to be omitted because I think that must mean that neither of us have seen it, unless it's on your best of.
I have not seen
Okay.
Madam Web, but I'm not gonna lie, I want to because it has the
Yeah.
birth of Peter Parker.
Yeah. I've seen people review it and stuff, and from like certain quotes and scenes that I have seen, it honestly looks like genuinely enjoyably bad. Like I'm kind of intrigued by it, honestly.
Maybe we'll do a special of it. We will
Yeah.
watch it and we'll review it.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yes.
But I'm ready to hear
At least
number
we know
one.
Producer Paul, that's his favorite movie.
Yeah.
That and Craven. He loves the Sony Spider-less verse.
Yeah, I'm not gonna steal your thunder, but I do have a guess of what your number one is, and
Okay.
I am going to write it down. And let's see. So I know it's controversial, and it's one of the most popular movies of the year, and that you said it could even win Academy Awards.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wrote down what I think it is, and
Okay.
I think it's something that you would hate for reasons that I'm sure we'll get into. I have a prediction.
Okay.
It is not something I've seen. Let's see if I'm right.
All right. Here we go. Ready, guys? Drum roll. Here we come.
This could be where everyone drops off. Our massive
This is
listener
when
base is...
this show, people say this show jumps the shark.
Yeah.
All right. My number one worst movie of the year.
Yep.
Is Dune Part 2.
Oh, that wasn't my guess. You know what my guess was?
What? Oppenheimer. Well, that came out the year before.
That came out wait.
Yeah. Remember it won the Oscar for this year?
Wait a second.
Mind blown right here.
Wait
Remember Barbenheimer, the whole thing?
I thought Barbie came out this year too. I don't have 10 movies anymore. I thought that was this year. I really thought.
Oh, that was a while ago.
I thought that was like last April, wasn't it?
That was July, I think.
Okay.
So that was a year and a half ago.
I really thought both of those came out in 2024. Like I really, really thought both of those came out this year. Wow. Interesting. Dune Part 2. I actually think that I would probably enjoy the Dune movies, but I have not seen them.
Okay.
Yeah. Had you seen the first one?
I had. I've watched them back to back.
Okay.
And I hated every minute of it.
Okay.
I even went back and watched the old 80s one. It's not any better.
Yeah, that one's by David Lynch. I really want to watch that one, actually.
Yeah. So, Dune Part 2. Boy. It's like if you took Star Wars and took away everything fun from it and combined it with Lawrence of Arabia. It is so boring. It is so depressing. None of the characters are interesting. This whole thing about how Paul Atreides is the chosen one, who gives a crap? Who cares? And then you have his relationship with Zendaya's character. I don't know if they say her name. I don't care if they say her name. It comes out of nowhere because you're like, oh, wait, are they dating now? Oh, I guess they are. None of the characters stand out. If I remember right, I can't remember if it's the David Lynch one or both. Like, the hit Paul's mom, producer Paul.
Yeah.
Paul's mom has a conversation with his unborn sister who's still in the womb, and they're discussing war strategy or something. I just found the whole thing, all 3 hours to sit through of Dune Part 2 to be such a terrible experience. And having seen, both Part 1 and 2 of Denis Villeneuve's version and the David Lynch version, I genuinely feel Dune is one of the worst stories ever told throughout all humanity. I don't care about the spices of whatever stupid planet it is. I thought it was terrible. Now, the one thing I'll say is that some of the acting was really good, particularly the guy in the floating wheelchair who I thought was the Emperor this whole time. It turned out he wasn't. So there's that. Austin Butler as the guy who looked like him. I think he was a nephew. Look,
Yeah.
it was hard to focus on this piece of junk. It did not hold my interest. Some people said, well, you didn't get it. Well, this movie sucks. And I hated it so much. I mean, I've tried to block it out. I hate it that much. I genuinely feel like these are some of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Wow, that's
they're
shocking.
Awful, and I hated every minute sitting through them. And I tried to find what are people seeing in this? Like, oh, they're looking for their eyes are blue. Okay, Paul, just like our producer, Paul Atreides is such an a-hole. He whines about, I have a destiny and I don't want to fulfill it.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't gonna help, obviously, but what I know about Dune is that it's, I think, about the flaws in finding a Messiah figure, and so therefore Paul is not supposed to be a protagonist in the sense that he's not supposed to be like a good guy, that he's not actually supposed to be deserving of all this power. It's like he's not necessarily a good guy from what I understand.
Yeah, I think having seen the movies, I almost feel like this is a story. I have not read the book, but maybe it's one of these type of stories that only works on the page where you imagine stuff. Because when you see it, like it just looks stupid. And like he was with Zendaya's character, and then he goes with the one from Black Widow, the Yolanda. What is her name? Oh my god. Florence Pugh. He wants her to be his queen, which just comes out of nowhere. And it ends where he's going to do some battle. I don't know. Look, all I wanted was for them to all die at the end. That's all I wanted. I wanted the sandworms, which look better in Beetlejuice, to come out. In principle. Look, visually, visually, there's nothing really you can do. You're in the sand. Special effects are nice, but for what they have to work with. I just wanted everyone to die. That's how I felt. I didn't like any of these characters. I wanted them all to die. I rooted for everyone to fail.
Yes.
So, there's Dune, and look, what can you say? I've seen two versions of it. It's not Denis Villeneuve's fault. I think it's not David Lynch's fault. It's just this is one of the worst tales ever conceived by humanity.
Okay, this is more controversial than I expected, actually. Because I don't know, I've always been on the there are elements of Dune that interest me and make me think I should have read it a long time ago and that I should have been watching these movies, and I feel like it would be something I would like. But then I always find myself not really feeling compelled enough to actually go through with it, and I'd just rather do something else. But one of the things that makes me think I would like it is like, I like long movies. I like long tales. I like, even if it's a little dry, even literally, I hate sand. It's coarse and rough. It gets everywhere. I honestly, I think like a sort of dry, very like political sci-fi tale. That's very appealing to me.
You want a Zack Snyder take on Star Wars, Lawrence of Arabia?
Well, I wouldn't want it to be Zack Snyder. I would want it to be, let's see, maybe the Batman, which is, not that dry, but it is long.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I am curious about this. I almost feel like for people who like these movies, I genuinely feel like you had to have read the book ahead of time. I don't know how someone can go and watch this movie just cold and being like, "Oh, this was great."
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's obviously a very divided opinion because it seems like that is not what other like you're not seeing what other people are seeing, really.
Are loving it, apparently.
Yeah. I don't know if honestly I intend fully to watch every single David Lynch film before I die. I intend to do that even in the next couple years. I watched many David Lynch films this year and late last year. So I honestly find it much more likely that I would watch the original Dune movie over this one. I don't know if I'll ever.
The nice thing is that it's not dragged out over 2 movies.
Yeah, it's more. Which I've heard.
Still, that one, so much exposition.
Yeah, for sure.
Much exposition.
I've heard that. Well, a couple things. One, David Lynch kind of disavows that movie and wants to pretend it doesn't exist because he was kind of doing something that he didn't care about doing. It's not really. It wasn't his baby. He likes to make his own stories. But I want to watch it anyway. I don't even care. And so, but yeah, I've heard it's not very good. I've heard, on the contrary, everyone I know has said that the new ones are good.
Well, I'm glad to break that record.
Yeah. So now I have contrasting opinions, so I can go in fresh and not have expectation. I don't know if I'll ever get to it though. I mean, there's so many things I would rather consume, but who knows, maybe someday. I do have a vague interest in it. It seems like something I could potentially like I've been into reading, like, I'm reading the first book in the Stormlight Archive fantasy series. The first book's like 1,200 pages or something. It's so like tons of like there's just a lot going on, and there's I've heard a complaint a lot that people are getting fatigued with how long movies are. I'm on the complete opposite, and I want more movies that you can live in the world a little longer and they take their time. So like I don't like when movies are just like the dialogue is practically overlapping. They've been edited to just here, now we're here. And it's just like I want to be able to breathe for a second. And so I like longer movies. And honestly, the most appealing thing that anyone ever said about Dune Part 2 is that it's really long. So that's awesome. But if it's not good, that would make it a bad. That's the thing with long movies. If you don't like it, it's horrible.
Yeah, The Godfather Part 2 is like 40 minutes longer than Dune. It's 3 hours and 40 minutes. It feels much shorter than Dune.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we don't have to super fight on this because I haven't seen it. It's not a franchise I have a particular connection to, but surprising nonetheless. Yeah. I do think that is very controversial. I can't believe that Oppenheimer didn't come out this year. And now I realize that the reason why is because I saw the Barbie movie this year, not last year.
Oh, yeah.
But and because now you brought it up last year. It was on your list.
It was.
Oh gosh. It was going to be like my number 8 or something.
Oh, well.
Sorry
to disqualify it.
That's Wow. So there's my honorable mention, I guess,
I
is
guess so.
2023's the Barbie movie.
Yes.
Well, that's a good segue. I think it's time to do the more positive part of this, to finally get to some good stuff.
Yes, that would be nice. Let's celebrate instead of getting everyone mad.
Yes. Before
Oh, by the way, I know they're making a third one, and this one person says that it's not very fan friendly, especially what they do to Paul. I'm like, kill him off, kill him
Yeah.
off, kill him off. Preferably, I want everyone in that movie to die. Like, I just want it to just be the sandworms. But
That is the coolest part.
The next best option is just to kill off Paul.
Yeah.
And for them to not have a savior so that they will all die.
To me, the coolest concept within Dune is the sandworms, and I like that's always been a very cool concept to me, is these space sandworms. And but then I'm like, oh, I got to read this huge book to experience the freaking worms.
Yeah,
I can just play D&D.
Or watch Beetlejuice.
That's true. So let's get into the good stuff then. Is there anything before we get into our top lists? Honorable mentions up top, or any other thing, or should I get into my number 9?
Yeah, let's get into your number 9 since we had to disqualify one of them.
Yeah. I will go somewhat quicker through the earlier entries on my list, for various reasons that we'll get into. But here we go. So my now number 9. Honestly, this one's on here almost like I appreciate the concept. I was not my favorite thing in the world, but I appreciate the concept. And that is this movie called Stop Motion, which is a horror movie about someone who is kind of obsessively making a really, really creepy stop motion film.
Wow.
And when I heard the concept, I was like, this is like, I've always wanted a movie like this to exist that just leans into how creepy stop motion can be. And it is a good concept. I mean, it's basically just like she's trying to perfect this incredibly creepy stop motion film that her like mother who died kind of passed off to her, and it just keeps getting more and more twisted, this film she's trying to make. And it's I appreciate the concept a lot. The concept alone gets it on this list. Oh gosh, 1 second. I may have. Oh,
Did you
right.
something?
I noticed that the things were in the wrong order here, and so I'm just gonna reshare. Okay, so the next movie on my list,
Oppenheimer.
No, dang it, I have to take that off. I haven't seen that. And the next movie on my list is actually a film called Civil War.
I heard about this.
Yes.
I didn't want to see it because it seemed too scarily real.
Yeah, and
Mary Jane.
Yes, exactly. So the interesting thing about this movie is that the trailers and all of the much press that it got beforehand very much made it seem like it was going to be more about like commenting on America today and like any perceived like likelihood that there would be a civil war and what that hypothetical civil war would look like.
You mean again?
Yes. And I think that honestly, it's much more just about war journalism. Like the main characters are this very successful war journalist, the Mary Jane character, and this very young, like up and coming wannabe, like famous journalist, this younger girl in this picture next to her, who really looks up to her and kind of forces her way into this road trip to get to Washington, D.C., because they hear something big is going to happen there. And it's kind of a road trip movie, which I do always like, about these journalists. I think it has much more commentary on journalism and like war journalism than it does any commentary about, our current politics or something. There's a couple little references. And so I think a lot of people that might be kind of like, oh, I was expecting something else. I actually like the journalism take kind of more. However, the middle of this movie did have a scene that almost took me out of it because it was the most contrived, dumb excuse of a plot point. I almost decided that I hated it at that moment. However, I ended up liking it. By the end, there's a really tense scene that happens right after that horrible moment that is like the best scene, and that's a really scary scene. And it ends really great in my opinion. It's just that middle scene. It has to do with this really annoying guy crawling through the car window into the other car, and then it's like this weird contrived way to make them get to another place. It ain't right. But overall, I like the movie enough for it to be my number 8 movie of the year. My number 7 movie of the year is the only movie this entire year that I saw in theaters. And I will especially not get into it too much because my number 7 movie is Deadpool and Wolverine. That is right, Deadpool and Wolverine. So, I won't get into it too much because I'm sure we're going to talk about it later. But a lot of enjoyable stuff here. I thought it was more of a breath of fresh air in the current MCU than a lot of the other movies. I felt some parts dragged towards the middle. For whatever reason, I didn't like the post-apocalyptic section of it for some reason. Like, it felt like a drag to me. And even though I like that kind of setting, and I had this feeling where like I didn't buy the villain. Like, I was almost like I didn't quite feel it. But you're muted, I think.
Mr. Paradox or Xavier's twin?
Sorry, I meant Xavier's twin.
Okay.
Yeah. But overall, really good dynamic between Deadpool and Wolverine, and I thought that was fun and stuff. And that will bring me to my number 6, which is a little film called, we're back in the horror genre for this one. It's called In a Violent Nature. This was like maybe the first in one of my big horror binges in October, just catching up on all the movies I had not seen yet this year. This is like almost like a deconstructed slasher film. The thing I find really, it's not like, nowhere near a masterpiece or anything by any means. I think it's just a decent movie, but the thing that I do really appreciate about it is like it basically takes all of the like almost flashiness and the way that a lot of slasher films, your Halloween, your Nightmare on Elm Street, stuff like this, the way a lot of those slasher movies almost kind of like in some way make violence look cool, or like they're glamorized, they're like they're exciting movies. You don't always feel like this deep tension or dread in the way that like a more psychological horror movie might focus more on making you feel a sense of dread rather than scaring you. This movie, In a Violent Nature, to me feels like a deconstructed slasher film because it basically is like just very slowly and quietly following this like slasher villain as he just, with no soundtrack, no glitz and glamour, no crazy cinematography shots. It's just kind of quietly goes through his business of murdering people, and it's so low key and without any sort of like elevating it, no soundtrack, nothing. It makes it really upsetting to watch. And that's just like an interesting concept. So that brings me though into the top 5. I feel like I can let you end with your number 1. So I guess I can go into my number 5 now. And then the top 4 are really in a whole category of their own. So that's when we'll start going back and forth with our favorite movies. But my number 5 is I just saw it the other day, and it's something I had been kind of interested in watching this year because it's a documentary, and it was just an interesting premise. And that is, I don't know if you saw or heard anything about this, but is the documentary of the road trip documentary Will and Harper.
Oh crap! I do have another movie to put on.
Did you see this?
No, but another documentary. Crap.
Oh, a documentary. Well,
where was it? Wikipedia? I'm sorry. Suddenly it just came to me
because I said the word documentary. You can throw it on there. It's not your turn yet, so you can throw it on there. So Will and Harper is basically a documentary about Will Ferrell and his friend Harper Steele, who used to write on SNL, coming out like somewhat later in life as transgender and kind of doing a road trip to try and talk that through and go to a bunch of places that she always used to like to go, but with this kind of buffer of Will Ferrell to kind of help her feel more comfortable in these places across the country and seeing different areas of the country and how they react and stuff, and asking questions and kind of just and normalizing everything. And it's just a feel good documentary with some heartfelt moments and kind of watching this friendship. And I love a good road trip, and I like it as I do think it's a good job being and I think that this is kind of the audience is it's good for if this is if someone just doesn't know the first thing about trans issues, this is a good way to just be let's delve into this topic a little in a way that feels just kind of friendly and welcoming, and everyone knows Will Ferrell, and it's kind of just instead of it being a highly politicized thing where instead of kind of just being taught to hate or feel like it's weird or something, let's just kind of let you kind of see some of the questions you might want to ask, or just kind of help feel more normal about it. And this is what I think it's very good for it might not be for the audience of people who are really in delved in this topic, but for the average person who's just kind of uninitiated, they haven't decided yet, they haven't, if a person hasn't watched enough Fox News and Ben Shapiro and stuff to already have this very biased negative opinion of hatred, if you're kind of just a normal person who just hasn't ever talked to trans people, it's a very good way to start the road of understanding, just the very first beginning of the road of understanding. And that, I think, makes this a really good piece of media from this year. But that brings us to we're in the top 5. Do you have a new do you have 5 now?
I have 5 plus that one special shout out.
Okay. Do you want to do your special shout out now then?
Sure. Bill, before, I just want to, talk about your documentary.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Talking about issues like this, I really think, some people, moron idiots, or just like, well, the media is trying to brainwash people. I think like documentaries like this are real important, where you show someone else's perspective, and
Mhm.
it kind of answers a lot of questions that people have. And that's the thing about, I mean, it's a documentary, but it's still kind of art, where
Yeah.
the art can show different perspectives that you don't know, and you can find, even though you may have different situations from someone else, you can still find stuff that you relate to.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very like humanizing, down to earth kind of portrayal. And yeah, I love documentaries for that very reason. It's just like a way to get other perspectives, and this was a effective one.
Yeah, so you said she wrote for SNL. Do you
Mhm.
know off the top of your head if she wrote for anything else?
Off the top of my
Anything
head,
else big?
no, but she was the head writer at SNL for many years. It says she worked there from 1995 to 2008. Head
So that would have
writer,
been when Will Ferrell was there.
yes, exactly. And so that's why they've basically been friends for many years. And then head writer 2004 to 2008. But in this documentary, we do see a lot of SNL people. Am I getting the name? Will Forte has a scene in it.
Oh, Will Forte was
Uh,
awesome.
there are a couple like clips of like there's a moment of Fred Armisen, but he's I think it's just a clip. But then Kristen Wiig has a fairly decent part in it actually, which is funny. Um, towards the beginning, they actually visit SNL, and Lorne Michaels is there for a
Oh,
second. But yeah. Any other writing? I didn't.
I looked it up on Wikipedia. I didn't see anything that jumped out to me that I already knew.
Yeah, but that's a very long career on SNL, so
Yeah,
that's a big writing career.
he was on there almost the whole time Mad TV was on.
Yeah, that's true. Um, but yeah, that's a very excellent documentary. I highly recommend it.
Oh yes. So I guess I'll go into my special shout out real quick.
Mhm.
And it's one we talked about before, and that was the animated Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths trilogy. That's right. So technically, this special shout out is 3 movies in one.
Okay.
And I heard a lot of people say that the Tomorrowverse wasn't very good, and I thought they were crazy because I'd seen the first 4 movies. It's like, these are really good, but I was behind, and then I saw the next 3, and yikes, did they drop in quality? Like
Yeah.
last one they did before Crisis, calling it a movie is being generous. It's a random assortments of scenes edited together. And you
Okay.
know what? I look at that crew, I'm like, guys, I know you can do better than this. So I didn't know what to expect when I watched Crisis on Infinite Earths, because it was literally a weekend I binged the rest of the Tomorrowverse. And it also has gotten a mixed reaction. Like, a lot of people didn't like it. And I watched it, and I thought it was really good. I thought it both filled in the blanks because it has flashbacks to other stuff from the Tomorrowverse that didn't make sense. It was an exciting culmination to this short-lived universe. And now that we've seen 2 adaptations of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I've read the comic book, I genuinely feel like this is kind of the best version we could possibly hope to get. Like,
Nice.
I know, like, years ago they were talking about doing it for the DCEU. I kind of feel like this might be one of those unfilmable comics to make into a
Yeah.
movie. Like, just focus on Infinite Crisis. That's a much easier story to tell. But I really enjoyed it. Now, unlike some other people, my viewing experience was a little different because I was so behind. I binged the whole trilogy together versus some people watched part 1 waited months later for part 2 and then months later for part 3. So, but I really liked it. There are some things in here that I think are done better than in the comic book. And I thought that what they did was they connected it to the previous DC animated universe, saying like, hey, these are both the same universe. It's just the Flash went back in time and changed everything, which was like, what?
Yeah.
Which was really cool. Again, like for me, this trilogy really saved the Tomorrowverse. Like, it started out great, and then it really dipped in quality, but this made it finish strong. And I really enjoyed it. The voice cast is great. From Darren Criss to Superman to now, I can officially say Jensen Ackles is my third favorite Batman voice actor.
Nice.
He really was the standout. He is still my choice to be Batman in James Gunn's DC universe. He was great, and overall, it was a wonderful conclusion to the Tomorrowverse, and it kind of put the ending of the movie kind of put a message of something I've been thinking about recently. And I think it's a really important message for fans to remember, which is, I talked a little bit about how, growing up, like when we had reboots of like the Dark Knight trilogy, they would say, oh yeah, we're separate from the old Tim Burton movies, or like Mark Webb's movies are, we're separate from Sam Raimi's.
Yeah.
But, lately I've been feeling like, you know what? Yeah, we may restart the story, but there's still, one movie series. And I think the movie ends with the end of the multiverse. And, Superman asks what is going to happen in that new universe. And to the Spectre. And the Spectre says, there in this new universe, there will be one Superman, and part of him will be you. And it's just like, yeah. We have so many different versions of Superman, but they're all still the same character. Like, it's not like once one version ends, you never see Superman again. Like, you still see the influence. Like, even in Matt Reeves' The Batman, you still see influence clearly by Christopher Nolan and clearly by Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And so there was that. And look, this movie was going to be historic for a number of reasons. One was because it was the end of the Tomorrowverse. The other, unfortunately, is it's the end of the DC Universe animated original movies line, because Warner Brothers is going backwards and deciding to connect everything to the James Gunn's universe. But one unexpected thing from when they made it was that it featured the final appearance of Kevin Conroy as Batman.
Yeah.
And look, I honestly feel like the reason they had him in there was just because he was in the Crisis on Infinite Earths live action. They were like, no, we can't do an animated one and not have Kevin, because he was in the live action one. So we got to make sure we put him in there.
Yeah.
So they did. And you know what? It's a very short scene. It's very much like a Stan Lee type cameo. And, had things been different, it would have been like, well, that was kind of a waste of time. But, seeing it now in 2024, it was a perfect send-off to his time as the character.
Yeah.
You had him in the old design of Batman the Animated Series. By the way, I see some people comment online. This version of Batman is not the same one from Batman the Animated Series. Because it can't be, because the whole premise of the movie is that the reason all this stuff is happening is because Darkseid was erased from the multiverse. Well, we saw Kevin Conroy's Batman fight Darkseid. So it's just, it can't be. It's a little bit of a fun homage. So his final line, I won't play it, but people can see, but I will say what it is, because it was so perfect. It was him versus Mark Hamill's Joker. And, you see that universe, the Tomorrowverse's version of the DC animated universe being wiped away. And he grabs the Joker. And it's one of those lines where it's really hard to separate the art from the artist. where, because the universe is being wiped out, and
Yeah.
Batman spends his last few moments fighting the Joker, and Kevin's last line as Batman is, "And if it has to end, at least I go out like this, being Batman." And then he punches Joker, and it's just like, what a perfect way to end that 32-year run.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And honestly, now that we have that, you can appreciate his appearance on Crisis more. The
Yeah.
live action one, because you're like, well, that's not what I wanted. But we do get him as Batman in another version.
Yeah. That's true.
Also, Matt Ryan is Constantine. So those two actors, Kevin Conroy and Matt Ryan, are in both the live action animated version of Crisis.
Pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big shout out, but that's a good shout out. I see why it's a shout out. So like I said, can end with your number one. So that was my 5, Will and Harper. So do you want to do your 5 now?
Sure. My number 5 is one that had a lot of hype going into it, and I didn't know how I'd feel about it. But I can't deny it was really good. My number 5 is Wicked. That's right. So I'll be honest, I don't really put The Wizard of Oz on that big of a pedestal because I've only seen it like 3 times. And the first time was only a couple years ago. So it's not like I have it on that big a pedestal. But this story following the younger version of the Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda was really good. Because with the Wicked Witch of the West, you have one of the most iconic movie villains, but you had to you're showing her transition into that villain, but at the same time they're making her a full character they feel sorry for and sympathetic for. And, there are moments you forget that one day she'll threaten to kill a little girl and her puppy, but there's that. I thought they did a really interesting job with that. Her relationship with Ariana Grande's Glinda was really great. Those two, their chemistry together really is what made the movie work. A lot like Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And it's been a little bit since I've seen it. But overall it was really good. I will say the one criticism, the first little bit is a bit slow. The first half is a bit slow.
Yeah.
I did feel like, come on guys, can we pick up the pace a little bit?
Yeah.
But overall, really interesting take on these characters, and they made the characters their own too. Like Cynthia Erivo, who plays the Wicked Witch of the West, and Ariana Grande, they made the characters their own, stayed true to who the characters are, but they weren't doing impressions of the actors from The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was very good. And the songs did help move the story forward. It wasn't like Joker where it just stopped and we were just wasting time singing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And like design wise, the designs of everything looked really cool. And one criticism I do have, and it's such a small spoiler, but I'm just like, why? This is stupid. Is that Glinda? Her name was Galinda.
Yeah.
But to show support for the animals of Oz, she changes it to Glinda. And I was like, why? What was the point of that? But whatever.
Why is that?
It's a little 10-second line, which you're like, why? What was the point of that? But overall, really good movie. Luckily, no one in the theater broke out into song, so that's always
nice.
I went on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, 10:00 show, completely full.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this is obviously a really massive movie. For me, this is like so not within my realm of interest, and it's sort of like I almost don't even want to comment on it. Like it's just not for me at all. And the only reason I would ever maybe see it is because it's so massive that it's almost like it insists that you see it because it's so massive. Like that would be the only reason, is if I were dragged to it for some other reason. And until that happens, I'm just sort of like, I don't know why I would see it. It's just not for me.
I mean, have you seen Wizard of Oz?
Yes, I actually kind
Did
of
you
grew
enjoy
up.
Wizard of Oz?
Yes.
Then you should watch it.
Okay.
It's one I didn't know if it would be for me, but if you enjoy Wizard of Oz, you should enjoy it.
Okay. I think the thing that's almost like, it's like, yeah, I kind of grew up watching Wizard of Oz almost every year. But the thing that's odd is just sort of like, I don't need there to be, I don't then need it. To me, it almost feels like I don't need to watch the fanfic. Like I that's what it feels like to me, where it's like, this is a fanfic where what if this happened and it was a musical? It just feels kind of like, yeah, I like the Wizard of Oz, but I don't need to have the backstory. Like it's kind of like a standalone movie where it's just like, not every movie needs to be a friend. Not every work of art needs to be expanded. It doesn't need a sequel. It doesn't need.
To be fair, the book series, The Wizard of Oz, has like 40 books.
Yeah, but that's
not all of them are very good.
That's kind of a flaw in my perception more than anything, is that I just kind of never really asked for more Wizard of Oz, so it's sort of just like, I don't care until someone drags me to it, and I'm sure it'll be good.
I do think you kind of need to view it as a reboot.
Yeah,
it's Batman Begins to Burton's Batman.
Yeah, and I do believe it is like technically canonically separate too. So
yeah, I don't think legally they can say it's the same one.
Yeah.
Because even though the book is public domain, the movie is currently owned by Warner Brothers. But we're not that far away from it going public domain like Steamboat Willie.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, it's nothing where I have anything against it, or I'm not saying anything negative. It's just truly like, everyone is like, oh, we got to see Wicked. And I'm sort of like, if someone drags me to it, like I won't go. I won't be dragged kicking and screaming, but I'm not like, oh, I need to see the popular thing so I can join conversations with everyone.
Someone is dragging you by your leg. You're like, no, they're gonna ruin it. You leave fingernail marks on the ground.
Exactly. On the stinky carpet.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the Barbie movie, where the Barbie movie looked like it was specific for one demographic. But there's really something in there for everyone.
That's true. Honestly, for me, the Barbie movie from the trailers just looked really kind of fun and enjoyable, and I wanted to see it though. Like, I thought
the trailers for Barbie were awful.
I mean, maybe not the trailers alone, but I just kind of like got kind of a vibe from it that it seemed like it was kind of creative, and I liked the art direction of it. Like, I kind of liked that they were going there. So I had way more interest in seeing the Barbie movie than I did with this, which I had basically zero interest for. So, but yeah, again, nothing negative there. Just, yeah. But yeah, that's your number 5, is it?
Yes. Could you imagine? You know what's nice? You know, I was thinking of being in that theater.
What?
Isn't it nice that like this movie is a success, and we're not ending the year with people complaining they've ruined Wizard of Oz?
That's true.
We would never hear the end of it.
All right. Well, my number 4 then. So 3. I mean, this is no surprise for me. I mean, this is just how it is. 3 out of my top 4 are horror movies. There's one non-horror movie on this list. On this top 4, I had other non-horror movies, but the number 4 is a horror movie, and again, a really creative one. And I'll also mention I think that this top 4 is on another level. We've like stepped it up a notch. This top 4 is really, 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 really good. So my number 4 is a very good, kind of quirky horror film called Late Night with the Devil. So Late Night with the Devil is like a horror movie that takes place on the set of like a 70s game show. And he's sort of
Wait,
like
is this the one Anna Kendrick directed about the dating game show murder?
No, it's not
okay.
actually, but I do know about the dating game show murder one. Yeah, this is totally fictional, and it's a supernatural story.
Oh, okay.
This is and I will say, like, the style of this. Okay, so it takes place on like a 70s game show set. It's basically like, yeah, the main character is a late night show host, and he basically the night goes very wrong, and it's basically like maybe a, like, I don't know, a 1 hour time slot of a late night show. And it's kind of just like, here's the, like, maybe 30 minutes of like build up or extra padding, and then it's just the hour of the show with like the commercial breaks cutting to black and white and showing the behind the scenes like rush between the ads. But it's really fascinating how it's just, you see the hour of television that happened, and during this hour of television everything goes wrong and it gets scary, because there are some guests coming on who are making some supernatural claims. And you've got the host, who recently his wife died, and so he's going through something. You've got this guy who in this picture is on the right, who's like this skeptic who's just like, I'm going to disprove these supernatural lunatic. I'm going to disprove this psychic, and I'm going to disprove this person who claims they can do exorcisms. And he's just like a skeptic guy. And then you've got the guests that night, which, it's like the Halloween show or something. So they're having spooky guests on. They're having a psychic, and they're having someone who claims they can do exorcisms and stuff. So someone who claims to have been possessed. And that's where, over the course of this hour of television, you're seeing everything go wrong. And it's just this really fast paced, things get more and more intense. Really cleverly done. It not only is it set in this older time period, it also kind of feels like horror movies from that time period, or maybe like 70s or 80s. I remember finishing watching it and actually kind of saying that I maybe got like a Sam Raimi vibe, like an Evil Dead or something. A friend of mine said like George Romero or something, like, so one of the, like a classic horror director kind of a vibe. I think that this is definitely some of the movies higher up on this list. I would like my number 1. I would maybe recommend it less to the average person. This one, I would say, like, if you're gonna watch, if a person who's a fan of horror movies is gonna watch a horror movie in 2024, it might be this one. I think it's very widely enjoyable. It's also not like a lot of the movies I like are just really dreadful and depressing. This is not that dreadful and depressing. It's actually kind of like more, dare I say, fun at times. But and there's some neat practical effects. It is a stellar movie. That's Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, yes. What a fun title, too.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. But yeah, then that would bring us to your number 4.
Yes, my number 4, which when you mentioned a documentary, jogged my memory.
Yeah.
So normally I wouldn't see a documentary in theaters,
Right.
but for a movie about this topic, it was a guarantee, and that was Superman, the Christopher Reeve story.
Right.
Right. So this movie told two stories. It told the story of, you know, the story of this actor becoming Superman and giving arguably the most definitive portrayal of any superhero ever on screen.
Hmm.
And they also told the story about his accident, and about, you know, what he did afterwards. And the thing that really connects them is that, you know, his optimism that one day he would walk again. You know, it's kind of that optimism and hope that's just like what Superman would have.
Yeah.
And so we saw that, and we see it shows about like how all the stuff that he did is making it so that more people are now being able to walk again. So that was really cool. Now look, he died in like 2004, and that was before I really became a fan of Superman outside the animated series. So like I knew there was a Superman actor who was in a wheelchair, but I never really went out and like bothered to like watch the old stuff. It
Yeah.
was like right around the time he died that Smallville started playing on ABC Family, and that's kind of what led to me looking into other versions of Superman. So a lot of the stuff that they talk about in the documentary I didn't really know about because I wasn't like keeping up with what was going on with him at the time.
Yeah.
And overall, it's a really great documentary. It did a really great job. I do maybe have one criticism. You know, maybe it's an unfair criticism, but for me, it almost feels like if they were real Superman fans, they would have included it
Oh.
instead of just documentarians who found an interesting subject. Um, you know, the documentary talks about how it was a big thing for him after his accident to be able to act again and direct. And he
Mhm.
was even like in a wheelchair in his ventilator, he was still able to like, you know, have a career in film. But one kind of glaring thing is how they never mentioned how he had two guest appearances on Smallville, which for me is kind of an important thing because even after his accident, he was still able to come back to the Superman franchise and have a big role in telling Tom Welling's Clark Kent that he was from the planet Krypton and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's and he was very vocal about how much he appreciated Smallville and how he thought Tom Welling was such a great successor in the role. So that's kind of my one criticism is just like, really Superman fans who made this, because I kind of think that's kind of a, if you're going to talk about his return to film and TV after his accident, I kind of feel that's a pretty big one when you spend so much focusing on Superman.
Yeah. That's true.
But overall, it's a great documentary. Even like for people who aren't comic book fans, there's a lot to take away from it. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So yeah, my number 4 is Superman, the Christopher Reeve story.
Cool. Very good. Well, that brings us to 3, the top 3. My number 3, which is it's my third favorite movie, my second favorite horror movie of the year, is the closest thing that we basically have to just a remake of Silence of the Lambs. But I mean that in a with full love. There are differences, but it is a psychological thriller called Longlegs.
Oh,
And it's a creepy movie. It's about solving a murder and trying to catch essentially like a serial killer. And it takes a that's kind of obviously the same premise of the Silence of the Lambs. You're seeing kind of the perspective of the like woman trying to solve the murder, and then you're seeing the perspective of the serial killer and kind of going back and forth and seeing both perspectives. Ending in a tense like standoff and stuff. But Longlegs differs quite significantly in that there is like a more supernatural element, where Silence of the Lambs is like a realistic story. So Longlegs has a more supernatural element. Amazing performances. The style and the way the movie is shot is really cool. And gotta say, just one of my favorite Nicolas Cage performances. That's all. He's in this movie. And it is what else is there to say about it? I thought the lead was very excellent. There was kind of a twist at the end that was very interesting. You didn't expect it. Has one of the coolest movie depictions of like the devil. Very scary. One of the scariest kind of elements of this movie. I love when movies, especially like horror or thriller type movies, will have like kind of will present something but not with like a jump scare. It'll just be like there's something scary on the screen that's subtle, and we're just gonna wait for you to realize it. We're gonna wait for you. There's not gonna be a big noise. It's just gonna kind of be there off to the side. And then when you see it, you go, it was there. That kind of thing happens a few times in this, and that's like my favorite. I that's scarier to me than any other type of like horror film thing. Is like the wait till you notice it kind of feeling. But yeah, this is kind of more on the psychological thriller kind of side of things, like Silence of the Lambs or something. Where do you call it a horror movie? Do you call it a thriller? I think that some of the supernatural elements might lean it towards horror, but yeah, kind of a horror thriller type movie. That's Longlegs. Another high recommend.
Oh yes. So I guess I can move on to my number 3 movie of the year.
Yes, number 3.
I'll be honest, it was not one I was looking forward to.
Interesting.
It is a sequel to a movie that I think is pretty overrated.
Okay.
Yes. So my number 3 movie of the year is Inside Out 2.
Interesting. I didn't expect you to like it. That's interesting.
I think Inside Out 2 is a much better movie than the first one.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I thought that, we had Riley move. Okay, boohoo, whatever. In this one, it's about her going to hockey camp, and it's about kind of her realizing that her friends aren't going to be there with her next year, and kind of that feeling. And then we also had the introduction of these new emotions like anxiety and boredom, and then they kind of get the classic emotions are kind of thrown out on the run. And I thought overall it was a much more interesting movie than the first Inside Out. So this ended up being the highest grossing movie of the year. And you know what? I approve. I thought that I really don't have much. I thought it was just such a more interesting story than the first one, which I think kind of was just like, it's Pixar kind of just doing emotions, and it felt like every movie they did was kind of a ripoff of this. But this one, it felt like they actually had something special with this one.
That's cool. I'm really excited to finally see this. I haven't actually. Just because it's not that I just have been really lagging on being caught up with Pixar movies lately, and a lot of times it's because a lot of them don't seem as appealing. But Inside Out, I like Inside Out one a lot, so this one did appeal to me. I'm pleasantly surprised that you do like it, because one worry that I had actually was seeing from trailers and stuff and seeing the premise. Even though I haven't seen Toy Story 4, the like having this new character and then like it kind of becomes about this new annoying character instead of the other characters. I was worried that was going to happen in this.
Oh yeah, like anxiety is kind of, it's not evil, but she's kind of an antagonist for the emotions. It's not
Yeah.
like they get thrown under the bus for her. She
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
has a role like Sadness did in the first one, where they kind of had to figure out a way to work together.
Yeah,
And
that
she
makes
was
sense.
honest. Anxiety was one of the standouts. I mean,
Yeah.
that design was great,
Yeah.
especially with how different that anxiety is from the rest of the emotions. But
Interesting.
yeah, they did a really good job introducing the new emotions.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm excited to check this out. Very cool. So that's number 3, Inside Out 2.
Yes, I had no idea it was going to be in my
Yeah.
best of list or that high either.
Yeah, I didn't expect it either. In fact, when you said that your least favorite movie of the year was a very acclaimed movie that could win awards, that crossed my mind. I was like,
Oh,
Inside Out 2, but that, I don't know, it also that yeah, seemed very harsh. So pleasantly surprised that you like it. My number 2 favorite movie of the year is also animated.
oh, okay.
And
Just Despicable Me 4.
no, but this was something where I saw it so early in the year that it was sort of like, I'm waiting for something to beat this. And it's also we talked about it kind of last year or earlier this year, I guess, because it technically came out in its original language, which is Japanese, in like November or December of last year. By the time I was able to see it in English in theaters, it came out early January. So I'm counting it because
Right at that cutoff point.
Yes, I'm counting it. It's The Boy and the Heron, which is I believe still the latest Studio Ghibli film. Miyazaki. I'm a big Studio Ghibli fan. I'm not typically much of an anime person, but like when I find something I like, I really like it. But also Studio Ghibli is like, everyone likes Studio Ghibli. I've talked about before that Spirited Away is like one of my favorite movies of all time. It's still my favorite Studio Ghibli movie, which for a lot of people is like an overrated answer, because like that's the one that won Best Animated feature Oscar, and it's kind of just the popular one. And I think a lot of Studio Ghibli fans like to give look, Spirited Away, it just is the best. It's the most fantastical. It's a great story. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Oh, you're muted.
When someone questions you about it, you just gotta say it is what it is. It's just the best. There's
Yeah.
nothing else to say. It's the best.
It just is. Like, you know, it's sort of like sometimes maybe you really like an artist, and people who will like that artist are too proud to admit if like their favorite song by that artist is like the popular one. It's like, oh, they're a one-hit wonder band or something. They have one really popular song. And it's like, you know what? No, I'm going to say the best movie that Miyazaki ever did was Spirited Away. And that's just the reality of it. I like that one the best. This one, The Boy and the Heron, is probably somewhere up there in my favorite Studio Ghibli films, specifically because it's probably the closest we've had in a long time to Spirited Away. For a long time, there were a lot more grounded, more realistic stories that dealt with less fantastical elements. But like both Spirited Away and The Boy and the Heron both have this like being swept away into this other world and kind of just like being in awe of all the oddities you see in this other world, and kind of being like dealing with the fear and confusion of being away from home. And the fear and confusion part is maybe more of an element of Spirited Away. And The Boy and the Heron, There's just more of like a drive to do something, I guess. But it's incredible. Like the journey through this world that was created is excellent. I think it's based off of some kind of like a children's book or something. I kind of want to see. And a lot of Ghibli films are like that, but they usually not Spirited Away, but some of them are like based off of uh novels or other things that but the anime will do like a very different take on it. It's apparently based on a 1930. Oh wait. Oh, the title references it. Okay, so it's not an adaptation of it. Okay, it's just a reference to a book called How Do You Live, which was in Japanese. So maybe it's not. It's loosely based around the novels The Book of Lost Things and Ghost Tower, and the title comes from something with the book How Do You Live. Okay, so it is kind of an original story that's based on some other stories.
Yeah. Kind of like how The
And
Dark Knight is an original story, but based on inspired by certain Batman comics.
yeah. Interesting. But yeah, an excellent story. My favorite parts were the boy and the heron.
Oh yes.
My favorite part was the part with the boy, and I also like the part with the heron. And the heron is the cast is the English cast is a good English cast. I don't want to get it wrong. I'm almost positive that this is the case, but I want to get it right. This is the English cast. Okay, so Christian Bale and Willem Dafoe are in it, and Mark Hamill is in it. Florence Pugh, Robert Pattinson.
Two Batmans and a Joker.
Yes, that is right. There's two Batmans in it. But gosh, I didn't want to get it wrong. Here it is. Okay, so the main character I think is some kid. The heron is Robert Pattinson. And there's this pelican character that's Willem Dafoe, and that's very cool. But yes, that is right. It's got two Batmans. Christian Bale is like, I think it's the dad or something. I don't remember. I wish I couldn't find it fast enough. But yes, The Boy and the Heron, excellent animated film. Probably being number 2 in the 2024 list probably makes it one of my favorite animated films of the last few years. So yes, The Boy and the Heron.
Oh yes, and it won the Oscar for best animated feature this year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, very good, very deserved, I would say.
Yes. So I guess
yeah, you're number 2.
Yes, I guess I'm going to my number 2, and my number 2 is a sequel to a movie from the 1980s.
Okay,
that's right. My number 2 movie of the year is Beetlejuice.
I see.
That's right. Now a lot of people love the original Beetlejuice. And I've seen it a few times and I like it. But for me, my Beetlejuice was that animated show.
Yeah.
That to me was my Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. Like I associate this Tim Burton franchise with the cartoon versus one of Tim Burton's other franchises with Michael Keaton. I associate both the live action movies and the cartoon.
Yeah.
But by the way, let's get them back together to do another Batman. That'd be fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I really like this movie. You know what? I don't care. I like it more than the first one. I think that the stuff they did with Beetlejuice and the was it the Nether Realm he's in? I think that's what it is. The
Yeah,
Nether
to
Realm.
be honest, I haven't seen either movie, so
Okay, well, we'll just go with that.
yeah.
That was really interesting, where it's about his ex-wife is back and he's on the run. And then you have Lydia, who is is just like, oh my god, I think I see Beetlejuice again. And you had her mom come back. Obviously, her dad can't come back, for certain legal reasons. You can look up some really messed up stuff he did on Wikipedia. And Jenna Ortega was Lydia's daughter, and she was really interesting. There was a really cool twist in the movie that made me go, oh, this just made it better than the first one. So, yeah, Michael Keaton was great once again as Beetlejuice. I mean, this is such a compliment I can give him. Not once did I think of Batman, and we all know what I think of him as Batman.
That would be
He is
very
the
difficult
GOAT.
for you, yes.
Yeah, not once did I think about Batman. And I loved how, like, the special effects in here, they tried to make them look like consistent with the effects from the 1980s. So that was awesome. The one thing I will say is that, kind of like Wicked, this stuff in like the normal human world, the first half was a bit slow, but it did pick up, and it was nice how they did cut between the normal world and Beetlejuice's world. So I never got bored. Also, another Batman connection. We got a cameo from Danny DeVito in here. So we got Batman and the Penguin in here.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yes, we just needed Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
But maybe with Beetlejuice 3. So, oh, by the way, you can see his name tag in here. I loved Bob. Bob was such a great standout. So yeah, overall, really good movie. In my opinion, I like it more than the first one. So, yeah, my number 2 movie of the year, Beetlejuice. I mean, this movie, really, it's just Tim Burton showing off what he does best.
That's cool. Yeah, even though I haven't seen either of them, except for a little of the cartoon you mentioned, I've seen a little of that. Something about the first one, I was just like, I don't care about this. This looks dumb. The second one, I was like, kind of looks good. So yeah, I have no frame of reference, but there's a part of me that is almost like more interested in the second one.
Yeah, I mean, Beetlejuice it feels like, I thought I heard Michael Keaton say that he has the same amount of screen time between the two movies. It felt like Beetlejuice had much more of a presence in this one versus the first one. He's kind of a secondary character.
Yeah, I've heard that before. That's interesting.
Which I always thought was odd. Like,
yeah,
when is he coming? When is Beetlejuice coming?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, that's your number 2 for
my number 2
for the amount of times that the title says Beetlejuice.
That's right. If we say it, I can't remember if it's 3 times or twice we can get him to come out from the netherworld.
I thought it was twice because that was the idea of the title in this, but I don't know, maybe not. I've never seen it.
I think in the opening of the cartoon show they say it 3 times, and that's what brings them back.
I see. That makes more sense. Twice is too easy to do on accident.
Yes. And there's this great scene where Lydia tells her daughter, don't say his name a 3rd time or 2nd time.
Yeah.
Don't say it too often.
That's right. Well, if that's your 2, and I said my 2, which was The Boy and the Heron, that's going to get us to the moment we've all been waiting for.
That's right.
Which is each of our number 1s. So I'll get into my number 1. My number 1 favorite movie of the year. I was looking forward to it a little. I had seen the director's first movie. This is their second movie. I saw the director's directorial debut maybe last year, and I liked it. It was a very quiet indie film with clearly the lowest budget of all time. Not in a way that was like, it was just like, it didn't do a lot. It was a very quiet, understated movie. And that movie is called We're All Going to the World's Fair. truly a movie that was probably made for like $20 directorial debut, and nothing happens in it, but I enjoyed it. This movie, A24 kind of horror adjacent movie. I heard some buzz and I heard some things about it that made me really want to see it. I didn't end up seeing it in theaters, but I saw it when it came out on streaming on Max, and a few months ago. And I have only had this feeling with a few pieces of media throughout my life, but there's a moment in watching it where I just am like, I want to live here. It's just special. And it's a feeling that I get from a lot of like more coming of age themed things that have indie soundtracks, which I've noticed, such as one of my favorite game franchises, Life is Strange, which is kind of like a vibe that I got in this. But this movie that I'm talking about is called I Saw the TV Glow.
Wow.
It's my number one favorite movie of the year. And I Saw the TV Glow. It is one of those movies where if it's marketed to you as a horror movie and you get there and you get this, you might want your money back. It's a great movie, but it's about something else. It's about something more of a dreadful angst and fear about life itself and coming of age, more than it is about any more tangible real life fears such as murderers and monsters and stuff. Essentially the premise of the movie is the main character, who is my favorite movie of the year, and I'm blanking on some of the well. There's a reason why the names of the characters can be confusing, because there's technically two versions of the characters, and they have different names. So yeah, the main character, Justice Smith's character, is Owen, and then the Bridget Lundy Payne's character.
Is Justice Smith the guy from Empire who faked the attack, or is that someone else?
I don't know anything about that, but Justice Smith was in Detective Pikachu.
I don't think that's him then.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Owen and Maddie. Okay, so
okay, that's not him. That's not him.
Yeah, okay. The premise of the movie I Saw the TV Glow is essentially that Owen discovers that there is this TV show called The Pink Opaque, and he seems really interested in it, but he feels like he's not allowed to like it because it's for girls. And he has like a very domineering father played by Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit. And so he's very afraid of liking this thing that's supposedly for girls. And he meets Maddie, and Maddie likes the show, and so he tries to vicariously enjoy the show by asking her questions, and he eventually gets invited over to watch the show with her. And they start this friendship based entirely around liking the show The Pink Opaque.
Is this set now, or is it set in like the past?
I think it's set now. I think it's supposed to be now, but the show The Pink Opaque is actually it cuts through different times. I can't say it just set now. It goes through different times. But there's one chunk of time that most of the movie takes place during, and I feel like that's sort of more modern. Because the show,
I wasn't sure if he doesn't want his dad to see him watching the show, if he'd be able to watch it on his phone or a laptop or something.
And I would also, the childhood portion that it opens with that I described does take place in like the 90s, I think.
Oh, okay.
Or when it's airing, maybe late 90s or something. Yeah, but then it cuts forward like 20 years or something, 15 years. I don't know exactly, but no, it's only to high school. So it's a few years and then it cuts forward again. Doesn't matter. The show, The Pink Opaque, the show within the show, does a really, you see it a lot of it in this movie. And it does a really good job of creating the vibe of like a late 90s ish live action kids show, but a scary kids show. So sort of like Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps or something.
Oh, okay.
It does a really good job of like creating the vibe of like a really kind of corny kids show from that era. But it's sort of the kind of thing where like if you're a kid, it's like, oh, this is kind of an edgy show kind of a thing. Like I was talking about, how kids need to be scared by stuff.
Yes.
And that the show within the show has some like scary looking monsters and stuff, and then you'll see some horror elements of that. But there are the Pink Opaque, the show within the show, has two the names of the characters in the show are Isabel and Tara. Tara is played by a musical artist I really like a lot called Snail Mail. And that's interesting. There's a lot of musical cameos in this. The soundtrack, a lot of it is by Alex G, who is sort of folky artist I like a lot. There's a cameo from Phoebe Bridgers, which is, I was like shocked when she showed up. And there is King Woman is another artist that makes an appearance. It's kind of in some parts an ode to not only some of the kids or teen content that I grew up with, but also the music that I like. So very made for me in that sense. But then, yeah, that's kind of the premise, is like trying to sneak out and watch this show and then starting to notice some similarities in the show to their life and sort of recognizing some weird things about themselves. Which I won't get into too much because there's kind of a midway twist that changes the dynamic of the movie. And like I said, there's a lot of jump forwards in time, so it's very closely following this Owen's life. As like he's very much about this person and their inner world and what they're going through and their family and their friends. And it's very much a coming of age about this person. I, of course, love movies that are kind of theme first. I've mentioned before on the show how sometimes I honestly don't care that much about the plot, as long as the theme is strong. Like, I'm very much looking for thematic significance, things I find to be thought-provoking. And this movie, I mean, it's all that. It's just like, after I saw this, spent the next week just kind of like trying to piece it together like it was a English class assignment or something. Yeah, it's really about the dread of Owen growing up and coming of age. And the big thing about it that somehow a lot of people don't recognize, even though it is literally so in your face, that I don't know how anyone could possibly come out of this movie and not realize what it's about. It's all, I don't even know if I can call it an allegory, because it's not even subtext. It's like the text of the movie is that Owen is struggling with realizing that they're trans. And the coming of age and the like seeing themselves in the show, they're seeing themselves in a character that is a woman who kind of looks, that both of the characters kind of look like them in the show within the show. And so there's kind of this like, I really think the movie is about not only the horror of recognizing that you are some kind of queer. I believe that the character of Owen is realizing that deeply closeted trans, and then Maddie is lesbian and kind of more openly talks about it. And so I think there's also kind of a pull where Owen wants to be able to be more open about what they're thinking, like Maddie, but is not there yet. And part of it is the dread of being deeply closeted, the like horrors of not being able to be your true self, like a longingness of wanting to be your true self. And then really the most dreadful and horrible thing about it all is like the continuing to go through your life, not living as your true self, being locked away for years and years, and like just the despair of staying locked away. Because towards the end of the movie, I don't know if it's 3/4 of the way through, is the most harrowing scene that I'll say it involves well, a lot of it involves a TV. It involves a shower, I'll say that. And that is the most horrific scene of the entire movie, followed by the very last scene of the movie, which like is basically like a panic attack depicted on screen. I mean, literally and figuratively. But even though like there's like a bleakness to it, because it is about like the horrors of like the fact, like what someone would feel by, you know, going through this so alone, so closeted, and not being able to be their true selves. There's also a message of hope in it, and I think that the my most important takeaway was there was a scene that I may have teared up a little, which never happens to me in movies. I've probably cried at like 2 or 3 movies in my entire life. There is a scene where I believe Owen is like walking down the street, and there's just like chalk written on the ground that and there's like a chalk drawing on the ground, and the chalk says there is still time, which I think is like right near the end of the movie that happens. And to me, that is like the crux of the entire movie. Like, even though on its face it might seem very bleak, based on like the themes presented can be very bleak and scary, just about life. But then there is that message, which interestingly, I don't know if Owen looked down at the message. I don't know. But it's sort of like a message to the audience at that moment. It's not really like the main character of this story is not reading that message. They're not taking the hint. They're not realizing their true self. And it's horrible. It's horrible to witness. But then to the audience, this message comes up. There is still time. Basically, it's never too late to make a decision about, you know, living as who you want to be. So I found that to be like the primary message of this. There's a lot that I'm not fully saying about this movie.
Was that the end of the movie? The chalkboard thing? Or the chalk on the street thing?
It was not the very last thing. I believe it happens shortly before the final scene or something.
Oh,
it happens in the last half. It's not the end though. But it's kind of the end of that segment of the movie, and I think it's it's a very like in your face moment of just like shaking you and making you contend with the themes of the movie. But I thought that was an amazing moment. So that's really, there's a lot I'm not saying about this movie. People should watch it with all of that I said in mind, but there's a lot of twists and turns that you wouldn't expect therein. One thing I will say though is the closest thing to like a horror moment, because the rest is like coming of age drama, but with a sense of dread throughout the whole thing. There is a part that is much more just horror, and I gotta say it's one of my favorite like I guess, kind of monster designs. He's called oh gosh, I saw it earlier this year, so it's just like um there's this creature in the show within the show um that you hear reference to throughout the movie, and it's sort of like this big build up to when this villain in the show within the show reveals itself, and his name is Mr. Melancholy. I love the design of it so much. He looks, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's like this old really like one of the first movies to film ever is like a short film of this like moon man, this big moon face.
I think, yeah.
The
That's creepy.
Mr. Melancholy looks like a walking version of that.
Oh,
it's very upsetting. Like, it's something where you would think it would be cheesy, but it's just upsetting. It's like, it's yeah. I love that. I love that monster design of Mr. Melancholy. That's so cool. But yeah, broadly, it's more of a like coming of age drama kind of movie that is just kind of very bleak, but has this like hopeful message in the background that I thought was beautiful. Basically a 10 out of 10 movie for me. I loved it.
Oh, yes. So I guess that means I'll go on to my number one movie of the year.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm not going to lie. Is it pretty predictable what I'm going to say? I think people are going to marvel at this choice. Wink, wink. That is Deadpool and Wolverine. That's right. So, this movie, ever since it was announced that Hugh Jackman was coming back as Wolverine, it shot up as one of my most anticipated movies of this whole decade so far. For me, the Sony Spider-Man movies of, like, you know, we've had Tobey, Andrew, and then the Spider-Verse movies, not counting the Venom and Madam Web stuff, and Fox's X-Men movies, those are my favorite Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to kind of revisit the Fox X-Men was very exciting, and I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie, I don't put it on the same level of some of Fox's other X-Men movies. Like, I think the first X-Men movie, X2 and X-Men Days of Future Past, are better than this one.
Yeah.
But I still really, really enjoyed it. I thought when looking at Deadpool that just like the first two movies, they gave Wade an interesting emotional arc where he grows throughout the story. And that made it consistent with the first two movies. Wolverine, oh, so great to have Hugh Jackman back. One could argue this could be his best performance as Wolverine because of all the different places he goes emotionally. And once again, we had the story of Wolverine who failed, going on a journey to becoming the guy he once was again. We saw that before in the Wolverine. We saw it before in Logan. And it's done here again. And overall, Wolverine has a very satisfying arc in this movie. And oh my God, the Easter eggs.
Yeah.
My God. I talked about before, I've never seen Easter eggs in a superhero movie like this movie. We had actual Old Man Logan. We had Patch. We had Wolverine in the brown and tan suit fighting the Hulk. And the chemistry between Wolverine and Deadpool is what really made this movie shine. They were a great pair together. And yeah, both the characters and Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds together, they were a great pair. My two biggest criticisms of the movie are, as much as I love Wolverine's story arc, I think maybe, he maybe spent a little bit too much time being grumpy.
Yeah.
with Deadpool early in the movie. And the thing that I think holds it back from being like one of the best Marvel movies of all time is how they used multiverse with the TVA, which I hate the TVA so much. They just overcomplicate with the multiverse stuff. I didn't like how it was connected to the Loki show. I wish they had done what they did with Spider-Man No Way Home and just done their own thing with multiverse. But and that hurts it a little bit, but it doesn't take away from how much I enjoyed this movie. And we also got something that I had been waiting for, because the first time I saw one of these X-Men movies was 2003 X2.
Yeah.
So we finally got something I've been waiting 21 years for. Some people 24. And when it happened, when it started to happen, my palms started to sweat, my heart started to beat. I was like, no, are they? Are they? It was like it was the same reaction to seeing Tom Welling do the Superman shirt rip.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God, he's got the mask.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that was just like, oh my God, they did it. They did it. We got there.
Yep, they really did it.
Yeah, and you know, as someone who loved these Fox X-Men movies, like honestly, I did prefer the Fox X-Men movies over the MCU. You know, they just kind of quit. They just kind of stopped. In a way, the movie was right about how Wolverine was an anchor being, and once he died, the universe died, because that's kind of what happened with the X-Men movies. Like, once Hugh Jackman left, nobody cared anymore.
Yeah.
And by the way, does that mean Tony Stark is the anchor being of the MCU? Something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as someone who loved those Fox X-Men movies, was this the best? No. But it was such a satisfying ending. It gave that era, because remember, it just unceremoniously ended with the New Mutants in 2020.
Yeah.
It gave it a proper ending and a finale. It tied a nice bow on it. It gave, if this is the last time that we see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, even though I think they'll be in Secret Wars, it gave them, it tied everything up on such a nice bow. And you know, one thing I really liked about this movie, it deals with multiverse and time travel and stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I really appreciate about this movie is Wolverine kind of has a similar arc like Peter B. Parker in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where it's not like an Endgame where Cap goes back in time and just fixes his life. Like, at the end of the movie, after they've defeated the villain, you know, Deadpool asks someone from the TVA if they can fix Wolverine's universe. And the lady says, the events that made him the guy who saved the universe, there's nothing to fix. And that it makes, just like Peter B. Parker, where he has to go back to his world and he doesn't know if he's going to screw it up again, it makes it more real and satisfying. Like,
yeah.
It's not like we're magically going to remove all that bad stuff, or like The Dark Knight Rises, where he's just going to magically leave his life. Like, it's like he's still in the same position, but there's more optimism now.
Yeah, for sure.
And I thought it was such a satisfying ending, more satisfying than getting stabbed by a tree. But,
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I thought that the clip show at the end was such a nice touch to include actors that, I mean, this movie was already so full of people. Actors that narratively, you know, it would have been just a forced cameo. Like, they included Patrick Stewart, Ben Affleck as Matt Murdock. We even got to see Stan Lee in there from that short film they did before Logan.
Yeah.
The Deadpool one that has the Superman theme. And overall, it was just like going back to revisit. I mean, it's just like No Way Home. We went back, we revisited that world, and we got a proper ending. So
yeah,
that's why that was my favorite movie experience of the year. I am going to watch the Blu-ray this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm doing a quadruple thing: a Deadpool, Logan, Deadpool 2, and then Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that to me is Deadpool and Wolverine was my number one pick of the year.
Amazing. Yeah, I did really like it. One thing about it that made it more difficult for me that I mostly just think is funny is that like I unfortunately just didn't have as much exposure to so many of the things that a lot of people are nostalgic about and a lot of the references. Like I haven't seen all of the X-Men movies from that era, and I've and the ones I did see, it was a long time ago, and even the other superhero movies that were referenced, I've maybe just seen a superhero, the big quotes on that, but I've maybe just seen Blade. So I remember like,
I haven't seen any of the Blade movies,
but I remember like there was a moment in the movie where it was like the language of the movie was telling me the cinematography and the music, I guess, were like they're revealing a character and everyone's gonna go, it's that character.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be Elektra, but I was just going like, who's that? Like what?
And then Deadpool did say, just a reminder, who are you again?
Yeah. So it was thinking what I was thinking there, but I just there were a lot of moments where I was like, that is this a reference to something? So that was unfortunate, but
yeah, one thing I didn't get because I hadn't seen the movie is Blade talking about some people always trying to skate uphill. I'm just like, that's gotta be a reference to something. And then on YouTube, a scene got recommended to me.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely the highlight is the relationship between Deadpool and Wolverine and those interactions. It shined, I think, at the beginning and the end portion when we got to see a lot of that. So yeah, I thought it was an excellent ending. It felt like a good sort of finale to an era and kind of lets us look to this next chapter with new eyes. Although I'm not particularly looking for any specific thing that's in the future, but it gives that vibe of like let's now look to the future. That era is done, and we've sent it off the right way.
Yeah, when looking. Oh, by the way, I give a special shout out. It was great how after his movie got canceled, we got to have Channing Tatum as Gambit. And then all these references to how he was never really born and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He never got to have a life and stuff like that.
Yeah, see, those are more things that I missed the references to because I didn't like a lot of the things are. It's so like you would have to know about a movie that was canceled.
Yeah.
So it's very, I guess, comic book movie fan friendly movie for sure.
Yeah, and it almost feels like it had a Simpsons type moment where it predicted the future, where Wesley Snipes proclaimed, "There's only been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade."
Yeah, that's true.
Did you hear they took that off the release calendar?
Oh,
the reboot.
Oh, really? I actually didn't know that. Okay, so it's not even a joke anymore. It's just reality.
Not. It looks like that's going to happen.
That's funny.
That is fate.
Okay.
But speaking of the future of the MCU, like you were talking about earlier, first of all, I said before that I believe that X-Men 97 and Deadpool and Wolverine are the beginning of a comeback.
Yeah.
And we've gotten more projects announced. Like we have the Spider-Man cartoon, we got Fantastic Four, we got Avengers Doomsday, which is going to bring back Chris Evans, and we got Spider-Man 4 coming. One more project, I think we can proclaim Marvel is back.
Yeah.
And if that does happen, like if Daredevil, Born Again, and Fantastic Four are great, here, I don't want to set myself up or anything, but let's just have a special about Marvel is back. We'll just celebrate. We'll just do all Marvel news, and we'll just celebrate. Like, do you know how long it was? For years, we talked about how this thing was going down the gutter. Yeah, but now it's coming back.
Yeah, I hope we get to make that episode.
Yeah. But I was kind of thinking about something, because just something I've been thinking about lately with the future of the MCU. We had it where we had the Infinity Saga, and we've had this multiverse saga now. And the Infinity Saga, our leads were Captain America and Iron Man. And now that we're going into this new era, our leads are like Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, basically. And Daredevil, but that's TV. I kind of feel, and the only one really being carried over is Spider-Man, whose whole history has been retconned now.
Yeah.
I kind of almost feel that Deadpool and Wolverine, and who knows what will happen with the Avengers movies, maybe this will like change my view.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like Deadpool and Wolverine was not only the end of the Foxverse, it was the end of the old MCU, and that like Fantastic Four is kind of the first film of the new MCU. And even if they don't soft reboot like we think they will after Secret Wars, it's like, this Spider-Man is kind of a reboot, even though it has Tom Holland, and we're getting X-Men. It kind of feels like, I don't know, I kind of view them now as like two separate things. Like Fantastic Four is really part one of kind of this new MCU, and Spider-Man will be the next chapter, and X-Men after that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it does feel like we're looking to something, but yeah, we will see. That is for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, those are our number one movies, I guess.
Yes.
And that was our top lists of the year. We've completed our top list of the year.
We did.
Yes. So that means screw 2024 now. We're on.
Yeah.
We're
screw
on
2024. You're done. It's over.
All about 2025. We should actually it sounds like a good project name is
some people would love that.
Yeah, 2025.
I think the title may have been taken.
Yeah.
We'd have to talk to Paul.
Yeah.
Have him contact some lawyers and say, can we use that title?
Yeah.
Or is that taken already?
Yeah. But yeah, so obviously
maybe intentionally misspell it and then we can use it. Like
project with like
2025
a K, with a K instead of a C, maybe. Yes. Perfect. Well, that means that the next episode that you're gonna tune into after this 103 is going to be our upcoming, which is the way that we end this time of year, is by ending going over the year it is, and then going to the year it's going to be, which is going to be 2025. And we're going to focus on the movies and TV and stuff coming out in 2025, and trying not to think about any of the other potential stuff. That was for Unwanted Answers.
Yes.
So yes, that will be the end of our end of year segments once we do that upcoming one. So stay tuned for that. That was our favorite movies.
Yes. And as we look forward to 2025, you can still do it in the little bit you have left of 2024. Yep. Always remember that whenever there's an opportunity, we are at the end of the episode, right? Because I want to say the thing.
Yes, we are at the end of the episode.
Always remember, guys, throughout whatever year it is, to keep falling down that rabbit hole.